This is a Pyramid One International Network presentation. Welcome to Pyramid One Radio Worldwide Network. We present Jamie Clark. Let me tell you a little bit about Jamie. Jamie's an Ohio boy. He knew from an early age. He wasn't like the rest of the kids on the block. He knew things. With the guidance of his mother, Elaine, also a gifted medium, Jamie discovered that he had the gift of psychic intuition and could also communicate messages and feelings between people living and those who have left this physical plane of existence. In other words, he can communicate with those who we've loved and we've lost. Now, with thousands of powerful connections made worldwide and years of experience as his guide, Jamie offers his healing phenomenon to those who need it most. People searching for life direction and guidance, as well as those seeking answers and closure from family and friends that have passed. Let's hear what he has to say.
Our loved ones are always right around us. And they're like balloons that sit right at our waist that are tethered right around us. And so every time I'm walking, I literally can see all of your loved ones around you. It's amazing. And they're truly like orbs of energy, like balloons that just float effortlessly around you. No matter where you go, they're right there with you. That is the kind of connection that we all have all of the time. The more that we can make these connections, the more full and fulfilling our life and relationships can be with our loved ones who have graduated life.
Triangulation of communication. Each of us is like a radio tuner. We have the ability to tune into many different channels. Before Jamie read someone, he tunes into their loved ones and channels and sends out an invitation of communication with you. Our souls are like fingerprints in the way that each of us is unique. Our loved ones know our soul print, and by Jamie's invitation and their realization, they now create a triangle of communication. Jamie to them to you, you to Jamie. They know that I, Jamie, is on, and they're receptive and will sometimes come early to understand Jamie's rules and regulations and how most effectively to communicate. Now that we all have, or we all are on the same channel, can work together as a team, as Jamie Clark pats new paths to things in your life. May I present the man, the guy, my best friend, Mr. Jamie Clark. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Bobby.
The man, the guy, he's here.
Hey, man, we're like a family getting together. And Bobby, I love you, brother. You're always like that and a good friend. I want to get right to this because I have a very good friend, Mark Ireland, who has been my guest on the other show, Psychic Evolution, and has so much great information to share. We want to bring him on to this one and give him more opportunity to share the wisdom, love, and expansion of awareness of what he's gone through and what we all can find in our own spiritual way. So, Mark Ireland is the co-founder of Helping Parents Heal and the author of 2 books, including the groundbreaking Soul Shift, Finding Where the Dead Go. His father, Richard Ireland, was a renowned 20th century psychic medium who counseled Mae West, Glenn Ford, Amanda Blake, and the Eisenhower family. Mark has participated in mediumship research studies conducted by the University of Arizona and the University of Virginia, and currently he operates his own certification program. Mark's program objective is to identify high caliber mediums capable of furnishing specific, accurate, and pertinent information. And according to the Windbridge Research Center, highly evidential readings can provide a therapeutic benefit to grieving persons. May I introduce Mark Ireland. Mark, how are you, sir?
Doing great, Jamie. You're cutting out a little on me. I don't know if it's my connection or yours. I'm hoping that I don't cut out on you.
No,
Yeah, well, you sound
good.
clear so far.
Yeah, we're good here, Mark.
Okay, cool.
Great. That's
I'm
good
just
to hear. So thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here and to share some of my story.
And could you please share what got you in this direction? What experiences or circumstances happened?
Yeah, so as you and I have talked about before, and I've been on other shows with you, but for the sake of those who haven't heard this, I'll run through this. So basically, as you'd mentioned, I grew up with a father who had these abilities. And so from a very early age, I saw without any doubt that there was a continuity of life after physical death, just based on the specific detailed information he brought through to people in public settings that was extremely touching to them. I could see them break down crying. I mean, first and last names and other types of pertinent information there's no way he could have known. And so after seeing this sort of phenomenon many, many times, it gave me kind of an inner confidence from a young age that we're more than just physical beings, that we're a soul operating in a body for a while. But I took a more mainstream approach than my dad in my life. Grew up, went to college, got a degree, went into the business world. I was married young, had kids fairly young, and was just kind of cruising along, focused on what a lot of people in this country do, just kind of getting ahead and doing well and buying a home and all that stuff. And then one day, my 18-year-old son, my youngest son, Brandon, unexpectedly passed while hiking in the mountains behind our home in Scottsdale. And so that really was the catalyst that pulled me back into my dad's field and being, I guess, more mindful of my spirituality. At first in a desire just to have some sort of connection or confirmation of his well-being on the other side. And then after that, I think it was more of a journey or exploration for me to really go into my dad's field on my own and really look at it and assess things and come to my own conclusions. And remarkably, they ended up a lot like his. And it was of great comfort to me. And you were one of the first 4 mediums that I met with within that first year after Brandon passed, and gave me a lot of highly evidential information. And that journey is really detailed in my memoir, which is my first book, Soul Shift, Finding Where the Dead Go. So that's kind of the backstory in terms of how I got to where I am. And now I'm doing all these other things, like you mentioned, Helping Parents Heal, which is an organization for parents who have had kids passed. And we've gone from one location in Scottsdale to 90 affiliate locations worldwide, 17,000 members. Booked our second conference with 600 registrants. So it's really exploded. And then, the certification program is really, because after writing the books, I've been flooded with requests for medium names. And naturally, I'd always recommend you and some of my other celebrity friend mediums, but sometimes you guys are jammed up and have long wait lists. So I thought, there's bound to be some undiscovered talent out there. And sure enough, there was. And so people can get in quickly. And anyhow, that's kind of the backstory again. I'm happy to be here and look forward to having a fun day.
Well, and not only that, but growing up with an amazing dad. And ladies and gentlemen, I can only speak for myself, but his father, Dr. Richard Ireland, I have tremendous respect. He is one of the people who worked with me on my spiritual team, and he is incredibly amazing. Mark, growing up with that, and like you shared, man, it's first nature. Everyone's a psychic medium. Do you want to connect with them? What level do you want to take it to? But in doing that, and then having your son graduate, which is the impetus to create a whole new paradigm to help other people to help themselves, have you had your own spiritual experiences? Have you used your psychic medium abilities? Has there ever been a time where someone has come to you out of the blue?
Yeah, so you and a bunch of my other medium friends have hounded me about this for years in terms of nurturing this ability. And I do at times. I've had some pretty profound experiences. It's not something I've worked on all the time. I feel like I've got another role in life right now that needs to be my primary direction. But I do recognize that, and maybe down the road I'll work on developing it to a greater degree. But I'll give kind of one of the big examples that kind of shook me. And Tina Powers, another medium friend who lives in Tucson, and for 3 years in a row we were going to a spiritualist church in San Francisco to give a talk. It was called the Golden Gate Spiritualist Church. It was founded by a woman named Florence Becker in 1924, I believe, and she passed maybe in 1970 or so. And from people I've talked to, she had abilities very similar to my father's. So one of the trips we were there, maybe it was the last one, Tina was hounding me saying, Mark, I think you're going to get a message. Will you share it with the people there? And I said, well, sure, I'm happy to. But then she bugged me again and again and again about this. And then even up to the day we got there, we're walking in the door and she goes, Mark, now do you promise you'll share a message if you get it? And I'm like, yes, I promise. So we go into the church, I sit down, we have about 30 minutes to prepare. So I go into their healing room and sit quietly and kind of meditate. And I don't normally have I don't have great meditation skills, but in this particular instance, I was able to get my mind to being like a blank slate. And the only thing that came to me were just two names. And they didn't come to me as something I could read. They didn't come to me audibly, but they came to me as like an idea would come to you, like just an impression. And the first was the name Max, and the second was the name Maxine. And I thought, oh, maybe it's not Max, maybe it's Maxine. So anyhow, I went up, I gave my talk, and at the end, I told the congregation, I said, hey, look, Tina made me promise to share anything I might get. And so I don't know if this will mean anything to anyone here, but I've got the name Max or Maxine. And the pastor of the church, his jaw dropped, and he said, well, Max and Maxine were twin children born to the founder of the church, Florence Becker. And I think we know who's here right now. So that was pretty wild for me because they were just these kind of light impressions, and here they're very meaningful, but it would be very easy for someone to disregard that and not share it. You might just think it's your imagination, but it's interesting how the imagination and that function kind of work hand in hand.
Well, and being skeptical about everything, which is huge. But notice all you did was quiet your mind and it dropped right in. Just like you said, most people think, oh, I'm mentally wandering or wishful thinking. But for me, in 50-something years of doing this, I've learned the difference between when we mentally wander and wishful think about our own life and when our loved ones are communicating with us, which is this. When we mentally wander and wishful think, it tends to come from the inside out, like, okay, all right, But when our loved ones are communicating, it's like this, boom. When they shift you in, they tuned you in. You did not saunter through. But not only that, I think that brings up an interesting point. Out of all of the people, their loved ones on the other side, in this case, knew who they were wanting to connect to. You had no clue. They wanted to see if you were going to trust the information enough to say it. And that's why Tina's bugging the stuff out of you to go, well, right, okay, you said it. You're like, I feel like something's going to be happening in some way. And then all you did was go to that room and then quiet the mind so you knew what was your thought pattern and when something was dropping in as information of potential. Do you get more of those kinds of energy information drop-ins in a day-to-day experience? Or if you're just talking to someone, have you ever gotten that kind of insight where they're like, hey, could you please tell?
I wouldn't say that I've really had that. I would say it's more an emotional impression, like a feeling about something or someone. And sometimes it's like I have a good feeling about this or I have a negative feeling about that kind of thing, more of steering me. But it's more rare for me to get something that specific. It has happened a couple other times, once in a dream. back when I was, I think, 18 years old. I had a girlfriend, and I had a dream one night about another guy, her being with this other guy, and I was kind of jealous, and I thought, I wonder if this is just my imagination or what. And but in this case, I dreamt she was going out with this guy, and I knew his first and last name and physical description, and that was Bob Dooley. And talked to her the next day. I didn't really want to bring it up, but I mentioned I had this dream, and she goes, "Oh, go ahead and share it." And I said, "No, it's probably just my imagination." And I told her, "Well, there was a guy in my dream named Bob Dooley, and here's how tall he was. Here's his color of his hair." And she goes, "I dated a guy named Bob Dooley in Kansas, and he looked just like that." So, I mean, so on occasion I've had that highly specific information, but that's more rare for me.
But notice in that capacity, you knew who it was connected to. Out of all of the people, you're like, no, that's for her. That's directly connected. In your own personal life, of course, you were in a relationship. But, I found that also an interesting aspect when we've done the scientific studies, that how our loved ones know who and where we are out of almost 8 billion people. I always say, like, we have an IP address on the internet web, we have an SP address, a soul address on the universal web, never lost and always found. So our souls are like fingerprints, unique, so I call it a soul print. But within that, they know who you're connecting to. And a lot of times, they can see where things are lining up before you even connect with these people. And they can help orchestrate circumstances, not manipulation, but co-creation to get you to line up with that. How did that feel when you're, one, getting validated to go, well, I don't understand the information, but I do need to share it, and I'm not sure where to place it at the moment. That kind of neutrality is what I found I do. I don't try to understand the information, I just comprehend it. Because if I'm trying to understand, I'm trying to put my own frame of reference as I see my reality. Have you used... Go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I was just going to say you made a great point there that I was actually observed with other mediums, and actually some very high quality ones. Sometimes they'll try and analyze the information and then assign a meaning to it instead of just sharing it. And that's often where they go awry and something doesn't make sense, because they're like, okay, well, I saw this and that must mean X, Y, Z. And then they miss the point, whereas if they'd have just said what they got, the sitter's often going to understand it.
And that's the thing. You let that ego go and you just go for the information. And, like I do, is you get some validation along the way. Okay, there's got to be something to this, because I don't have a clue who this person is, but that information dropping through tells me that their loved ones know I'm connecting with them. And then when you can build upon that, now in working with the great organization of Helping Parents Heal, have you connected with other parents who might be using their abilities that have made their connections to their children or loved ones? Because of the connection of you bringing so many people together. I'm about the power in numbers, and you've done such an amazing job. And I'm sure that has more than likely possibly brought you some healing. The ability that through your own life experience that is tragedy, you've been able to, one, pick yourself up and keep going, two, help yourself, and three, empower others with that. How rewarding is that? Has that made a difference in your life in doing these for other people and yourself?
Oh, absolutely. I kind of feel like it's my main life mission, if you will. If I go back to 2004, one of the first readings I had just before yours was with a woman named Linda Williamson in England, and she's a very well-respected medium. She just retired. But at that time, she told me all this stuff that seemed far-fetched to me. It was like, you're going to get involved in building something. You don't quite know how, but all you have to do is tell your story and be yourself, and people will naturally follow. And I'm not the only one in this. Elizabeth Boyson deserves a tremendous amount of credit. In fact, she spends more time working in the organization than I do. But I would say that this thing started very small, and it has pretty much gone, as Linda said, and she said it would be very important work. So I think, it's for a specific group of people, which are parents who have had kids pass, but that's a significant part of the total population that's experienced this. And we will all experience the passing of someone in life, and eventually will pass. So it's kind of, I think part of the importance is not only to help people get through that and to understand that life continues, but just that also there is purpose to this life, and it's not to be taken lightly and not to be wasted. And for people that might get sucked up into a corner and just want to shrivel up and not do anything, to help pull them out of there so they can complete their path in life as well. So it's very rewarding. And, I know that people have written me that said they would plan, they're going to take their own lives before either reading my book or hearing something that I did. And I think there's nothing more that could make me feel any more like what I'm doing is the right thing than to find out that you helped somebody that was really in a bad place.
And that's powerful. When you just have to be you can't do it for them, but you can do it with them. And, like I do, sometimes when you can see, okay, it is possible, you can make it through. That to me seems to be a big magnifier for people to go, all right, you know what? If you can do this, then maybe I can do it. Because it's that self-healing, that self-realization that no one can do it but us. Bob, have you had any experiences or connections from your son since he's graduated?
Every once in a while, I just, the name just passes through my mind. And then there he is. He's there. He's in my mind. I see him. But a lot of times that it's the reference is to different times I saw him, different things we did together, this kind of thing, all of a sudden. And then all of a sudden, it would just be him. I mean, I could show you, I can't show you on here, but I could show you a picture of exactly what I see. And it's only because somehow or another it's in my subconscious. And when he wants to reference something to me, bam, there's the picture.
That's called training and discipline.
On his end, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
It's funny, though, because every single parent that I've spoken to, now I know, Mark, that we had talked about doing a show on this one time, and believe me, I've got a whole bunch of people coming together with some great stuff. There are a lot of parents that feel the same way, see the same things. I even wrote you, Jamie. I saw you. I mean, it was like, "Hi, Jamie, how you doing? Hey, yo, bro, how you doing? Hey." And it was like in another dimension. I mean, it was like here I was fully awake, fully conscious. My consciousness was there. I had just meditated. This was like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. Of course, out with the the walk with the dog, and then I do my thing. And then when I come home, I have a completely, totally clear mind. And when I do my work on here, I know what it's going to look like of what I did before I did it. In other words, before I do something, I already know what it's going to be, whatever it's going to be.
Well, and I think that brings up an interesting point. You're creating a future memory. You're saying it's going to happen, and it's already happened, but it hasn't happened yet. That's powerful.
I do
that's that creation, and
I keep telling people all the time, you're what you are, who you're going to be is in you. Use it. It's like, hey, come on. It's there. You can use it to help yourself. Don't ask me. I can't do anything for you. I can give you a path, but you got to walk down it. And of course, this is the way, Mark, you do your work, and Jamie, you do yours.
Exactly. And we're finding our own ability the best that we can, and being able to find ourselves within life more than lose ourselves to it. Mark, and I think you bring up an interesting point as well with what you were sharing just a little bit ago, that there's a lot of responsibility that goes with what we do, because the more accurate you are, the more responsibility. And, there are some times when I'll have a client come to me, or as you have had experience, to go, I'll share something as a potential of coming up for them in their life. And they'll be like, yeah, right, you crazy. And I'm like, no, I could certainly be wrong. But, I guess we'll see. And they usually end up calling back going, what else you got to say? Because I thought you were full of crap. And it all happened. Now, anything coming out of my mouth is the gospel, because they thought all that other stuff was a bunch of, and then it happened. My job is it becomes also a self-fulfilling prophecy. Because notice with that connection, Mark, that you're able to kind of feel things, assess things, and then get some information to work with in your own awareness through the practicality of spirituality. Because that's another thing that I appreciate and respect about you, Mark, is that you're practical. I always say, always be skeptical, question everything, just be open. What kind of a reaction, or have you seen a shift in consciousness with some of these scientific studies that you have done, where they have proven scientifically that consciousness exists beyond bodily death?
Well, I'm not really going to the 10th degree or the nth degree in terms of scientific protocols for what my purposes are. There are people that have done that and do that. I know a researcher like Tricia J. Robertson, who is with the Scottish Society of Psychical Research. She's done some in-depth stuff with, highly controlled. So has Julie Beischel at Windbridge. Mine is really more for the purpose of just it's, in other words, I already know the reality of the phenomena. I'm just trying to identify good people who I can provide as a trusted resource to those in need. But I would say, there's a lot of evidence since going back to the late 1800s and the early efforts of the SPR that basically statistically validate these phenomena. And then into the early 1900s through 1970 with Duke Parapsychology Lab in terms of telepathy and things like that, statistically validate these things. But skeptics will still deny it. They just aren't going to accept it until it comes and bites them in the face. And it's so I just don't waste my time anymore. I mean, my second book, I had a whole chapter about skeptics and skepticism and all the evidence that exists. So I feel like I've been there and done that. And I've said what I had to say in terms of the skeptics. Really now I'm more focused on, helping people who are open and interested. And if you're not open and interested and your mind is already made up, and you're a materialist and that's, what you're going to be, I'm not going to try to convince you. It's up to you to open your mind and look at what's out there in terms of evidence. And even more so personal experience. I think that shifts people more than anything else, because you can read about other people's experiences or the data from these various tests. But when you have one personal experience that's mind-blowing, it's going to change your thinking more than anything else.
And you have no way to go, oh, I don't understand it, but I just experienced it. Then it's real, because they want to analyze it, but they can't, because this stuff will take you out of your mind and bring you into your soul. That's why, a lot of times, and you're sharing it, I hear you saying, I feel, not I think, I feel. And to me, those feelings are the language of the soul, and vibrational patterns on their soul nubs, that one feeling is worth 1,000 words and then some. To me, words are just vibrational patterns on the ear nubs that we train ourselves to hear the patterns and apply a meaning. That's why with any other language, what does that mean? Same meaning, different vibrational pattern. Basically, a rose by any other name is still a rose. Now, within your program, your testing program, can you share a little bit of what one could expect if they want to be a part of this program to help not only the organization, but humanity in some way? What are some of the protocols?
It was cutting out when you were asking. You just want me to share the protocols for the test?
Yeah, no, I'm kidding.
That's what it looked like.
Because, you being the sitter, you had people do this with you and for you. Did you get some unique aspects? Because, it's all about evidential mediumship. You got to personality, circumstances, characteristics. Go, man, there's 8 billion people and many different personalities. But if you can be pretty specific, that's either good guesswork or something to that. What has that done for you with the way of testing people?
So you've cut out a lot there, but I think I know what you were asking, so I'm just going to answer it based on what I think you were asking. What I've done in terms of the protocols with the test is set it up so that if a medium wants to be certified, they have to go through a series of 5 individual readings with people they don't know and they can't see during the reading. So it's either by Skype or Zoom typically, but without the video. And they're introduced to the sitter when they come on in terms of first name only, and that's pretty much all they get. And then they have to go into that space and provide a reading. And then the reading's recorded. The sitter then transcribes it into individual statements. And those individual statements then are graded as either being correct, incorrect, or something that can't be determined one way or the other. So let's just hypothetically say that a medium said, I think I have a son who passed. His name is Greg. He liked pepperoni and anchovy pizza. Well, if the sitter then grades that and says, did you have a son pass? The answer is yes, that's correct. His name was Greg. That is correct. Favorite food, pepperoni and anchovy pizza. Incorrect. His favorite was pepperoni and olive. So that's how you would grade that. Or, and maybe a statement is made like, your son was really happy about your new paint color on your house. Okay, well, you can't really grade that because you can't prove that they're happy about it. I mean, maybe if you painted the house, you could give them a correct for the paint being changed. But if they say, or they, maybe it's a prediction. Say, okay, your son says a year from now you'll start a new job. Well, I can't wait a year to grade this, so I'm going to call that indeterminable at this time. So that's the process. And then bonus points can be awarded for highly evidential statements. So, for example, if the name Greg was correct, you might give bonus points for that. And that's a subjective thing, but the sitter can decide if they want to award the bonus points or not. Personally, if somebody gives me the first name and it's accurate, I'm going to award bonus points for that, especially something like that pizza. If that had been accurate, I would give bonus points. So when that's done, the reading's done, I basically tabulate it to a percent of accuracy, and they have to be at least 60% accurate on the bottom end and achieve a total score of 70 to pass. So you get 5 points for a bonus. So in that case, say a worst possible score would be somebody got 60% accurate and 2 bonus points. They would just barely pass. Or if they were 70% accurate and didn't get any bonus points, they would just barely pass. But I've been getting people coming through with, 80, 90% accurate and also, a number of bonus points. I'm testing someone right now who's in England, and she's on the first 2 readings scored 110 and 109 in successive readings. So I'm getting high quality people. And she was 80% accurate in both and then had 30 bonus points. So that's a good result. That's somebody who has the ability. And I've had others that failed, but that's not all bad, because that is why I'm doing this, is to separate the wheat from the chaff. Not that there's anything wrong with somebody trying if they think they have the ability, but I really need people I can depend on. And again, nobody can do it every time perfectly, but more times than not, if I go through this and the people I've identified were able to do 5 readings and statistically do well, more likely than not, they're going to be able to do a good reading for somebody who's in a bad place and needs this.
And I think you bring up a very good point, is get the variety. This isn't just one person. This is 5 different readings with people you've never met, more than likely. And you bring up an interesting point. For me, I always say, I don't mean to be rude, but I don't want to know anything about you prior to a reading. No easy cheesies. Otherwise, you go, yeah, it's this and that. And they're saying, man, it becomes more evidential when I'm Joe Schmo. But we can get that accuracy through personalities and characteristics that go, holy cow, because our loved ones are as hungry to get us to make those connections as we are to do it for ourselves and with others. And they know, in this case, that psychic stuff, because your dad's coming through to me, letting me know that you have the potential of doing 4 books. Besides his book, nope, it's going to be yours. 4? What? She's all psychic like. Because I'm willing to bet it's going to happen.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah, isn't it? Good. Because you're making a difference. And like I do, if you can do what you love and love what you do, that is the success. And not only that, the passion, that connection for me that you have, whatever it is, that's what speaks to people. And like I do, when you're touching people's souls, that is very, very powerful. And like you, I'm very honored and humbled that there are people who will come to me that they're at the end of their rope going, oh, Lordy, if we're not able to assist them, there's a potential of something else. And the good thing is I'm not going to make it up. If I get it, I give it. If not, I don't have a clue. You start throwing those cheesy generalities. Like, man, anyone can do that. But you get those personalities, and that shifts. And then they choose to go, you know what, that's extremely accurate. And not only that, you don't know me from anyone. I'm like, I know, that's what I like. But when they can get that connection through the personalities, because there's so many, but they're like, that's exactly how they are. And I'm like, guess what? That's how they still are, right? I'm just mimicking them. I don't know them. And they're like, yeah. And I have seen that so much, that people make those connections. And first, I'm honored, but I just do what everyone can do. But to have the accuracy to go, God, that's amazing. And then they start having their experiences for themselves. That's powerful. And a lot of times our loved ones from the other side, which to me is right here, right now, I'm into that quantum physics and spirituality thing, spiritual physics of unification, not separation. But a lot of times when our loved ones will communicate with us, it'll be in our sleep state. And I always say the difference between a dream and a visit is the clarity. A dream will be like, I don't really remember, but I feel it. That's a dream. A visit will be ingrained in your soul. And they look like we were talking about, I was there. That's because you were. They just get the average person because anything's possible. Once you make that connection, and if you choose, you take it into this conscious dimension as we perceive it, and you start making those connections effectively and more effortlessly. Not trying to make them happen, allowing them to happen. That's huge. And so in doing this, because I already know you've written these other 2 books and your dad's book as well, but there's 2 others of your own energy. And I know it's a lot of work, but even if you don't think you're going to do 2 others, like a total of 4, and you can certainly do more, you don't have to do any of them, but your dad's looking at you like this to go, And when you do that, things are going to take it to the next level. It's almost like either you connect with another organization or maybe you create some other kind of organization, but there's an ability to multidimensionality. So to me, it'll be more of the practicality as well as the spirituality. Because that's why I'm saying you've always been practical, but that's huge. Be normal, be practical.
Well, I am working on a 3rd one right now, so at least I know I'll have 3.
Yeah.
And I can see a 4th coming, maybe, from some of the material that's left out of this one.
Do you have any connections to Washington? I'll just say your thing's cutting out. Yeah,
you're
Washington.
Cutting out again.
I know, man.
State or DC?
I'm not sure, but Washington touches my big head. So to me, without being, too general, because there's at least 50 states and 205 countries, but Washington touches my mind. So don't be surprised if you connect with another person, because there'll be somebody else who wants to do a co-creation book with you. Doesn't mean you have to, but there's already an energy that somebody's coming to you to go, hey, are you interested? Because 1, you're already established. 2, I feel like whoever this person is has their own abilities, and in that way, it's all about presentation. You can say the same thing 10,000 different ways and get a different end result. You're very straightforward, and that I really appreciate, because you don't go all over the board. You're like, hey, here's what I'm doing. Here's the scientific aspect. Here's the practicality. And if we can line you up to get people to help you, to help yourself, that's powerful. Have you become more empowered? Have you shifted your life? Because a lot of times, like I do when our loved ones graduate, we'll tend to survive life. Yes, it's freaking great, instead of being able to live. In being able to help so many other people, has that helped you with your own life experience, your own perspective about life and the connections?
I think so. I think I was always an empathetic person, but I felt like, obviously, when Brandon first passed, it was a pretty brutal period of time, but I'd say we recovered and were able to move forward in a positive way much quicker than most. And I have felt more, not just confident in life, but also more at ease, where I think I was more always stressed. I would put this undue stress on myself about a lot of things that weren't that important, all the little stuff. What's the old saying? Don't sweat the small stuff. Number 2, it's all small stuff, So I'm able to do that a little bit better now, and not get so wound up about every little thing. And I think that's made my quality of life better and made me maybe easier to be around and more enjoyable to talk to.
But not only that, with that healing and that self-realization, has any other family members or anyone close to you had their own spiritual connections, their own mediumship aspect, with whether it's Brandon?
My son Stephen, I think my son Stephen, and he's had some experiences. He continues to. He has little psychic episodes here and there. he had something recently for his wife, my daughter-in-law, because her father passed just about a year ago to right now. We're close. We're coming up on that date. I think it was April. And so he was able to share something with her that kind of came to him that was helpful to her. And then I think I've told you before about Susie's experience. I mean, she's
Could you
felt
share that with
Brandon
the
touch in from
listeners?
time to time. Sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who
So
have
so this
that.
one happened just 6 months after Brandon passed. See, originally we were going to. He was a senior in high school and he had a semester to go, and we were going to take the boys, Stephen and Brandon, on a cruise to celebrate that. And so that was 6 months after he passed. We took Stephen, and then we took Brandon's best friend, Stu, instead of Brandon. And then we went on this cruise. It was a week long. When we came back home, the day we got home, within the first hour, Susie went and sat at the foot of our bed. And while she was seated there, she felt a presence near her, and she saw a shadow figure through her peripheral vision, and she knew it was Brandon. And it lasted for a little while, maybe 30 seconds. And then the next day she got a call from a friend named James Linton. And James is a musician friend who had actually been hiking on the mountain the same day as Brandon, the day Brandon passed. And his group came upon Brandon and tried to help, but he was too late. So fast forward, 6 months later, Brandon played bass guitar, and James had an in-home recording studio, and he'd asked if he could borrow Brandon's bass guitar. So Susie let him have the bass guitar, and here he is calling her the day after she had that experience of sensing Brandon and seeing him peripherally. And James says, "Hey, Susie, I have something to tell you, but I don't know how to share this." And she thought maybe he broke the guitar or something, but he said, "Well, I was in my recording studio doing this song, and I felt another presence in there with me, and I saw a shadow figure out of my peripheral vision, and I saw flashes of white light, and I went to get something to eat, and I got something to drink, and I took a shower. I kept thinking I'm hallucinating, but each time I came back, it was stronger and stronger, and then finally I just gave in and said, 'Okay, Brandon, what do you want?'" So he apparently knew inside it was Brandon as well. And at that point, he felt guided to redo this song completely. So pretty amazing that, he had no knowledge of Susie's experience, and yet he had the same kind of thing happen, the next day later. I think really to give us about as strong of an affirmation as you can get.
And you move from coincidence to precision on the universe's part. And I think that that's kind of interesting. And I believe that James created a song. I believe that something was created in that way, that he had reorganized the song, meaning I kind of feel like he might have been channeling a little bit of the insight from Brandon to go, well, out of all the people, it's a shadow figure, yet I'm feeling that. And notice on both of those, out of the peripheral, it's a shadow figure, and in James' case, with some flecks of light. A lot of times I've found that, everything is dimensions, frequencies, vibrations, and energy. But when we're looking straight ahead at this third dimensional reality, it vibrates very slow and sloppy. Other dimensions, much more refined. So what happens is when we're looking ahead at this third dimension and we see it of our peripheral and we look at it, all you're doing is taking this slow, sloppy screen of third dimensional and covering it over like, there's nothing there, whatever. I always say, question that, but I've learned to go, I just use my peripheral. I can see my hand right here on the side of my big head. I've learned to not do that because I found a lot of times it was gone. But not only that, I started seeing other areas, other shapes of energy that I knew. And kind of interesting, out of almost 8 billion people, in this case, Susie, your lovely wife, knew it was Brandon. And then James is going to be referring back to that connection to go, I don't know how to tell you this, but the very next day, I'm going to be your own validation that your son is coming to me and I feel like we're doing this together. And it's kind of what, in this case, Brandon, I like it. It's music to the soul. When you can make those connections, when you realize that we are eternal beings and that we do live only one life, an eternal life, but each life is a minute in the hour, an hour in the day. And each of those goes into our Solodex of self-realization. Have you had
James and James was unaware that she'd even had the experience, so that even made it more validating. Plus, the byproduct of all this was a song that he said was the greatest song he's ever written, but he didn't write it. And that song was a gift to us. And it's really a phenomenal song. I really need to get it up on YouTube so people can hear it. I'll do that before long.
Yeah, it'd be nice. Please, I think that's beautiful. And not only that, but to get a solid validation that this is a gentleman who never met you, apparently, until after this circumstances happened. And then he's connected so strongly, and Brandon knew who he was and bugged him enough to go, could you please do this? No manipulation, co-creation. Notice James felt like, no, I felt like I wanted to do this. It became so strong that of his own choice, he chose to start creating that. That kind of a connection, which you're bringing up, is he said, hey, it wasn't me, which implies he must have been channeling something. More than likely, didn't go into a trance and I will. He just let it vibe through him. And Brandon, who's talented in his own way, was able to go, oh, hit this chord, hit that, here's this, here's that. And together they created that song from the metaphysical to the physical and giving you both of those at the same time. Has he ever talked to you about maybe thinking about doing another song with just those exact parameters? Like, hey, let's see if Brandon would come through and do something else.
No, but that's a fascinating idea. I will say that I wrote a song and recorded it in James' studio that I felt was inspired by Brandon. I don't know that he channeled it, but it was inspired by him. And I felt like he helped me, guided and direct me a little bit with that song.
And that's what I'm saying. You didn't go into a trance. You're just letting it vibe going. It's just here, man. I'm just going to write it down. That's what I'm saying. It's untainted by the analytical ego. And as the loved one connected strongly to you, you know it's only a good thing. But more than likely, you were able to relax. Just go, no, I feel him. He's here. It's just creating itself. All right, let's do this. And with that positive, fun vibe, you know, and until you have your own spiritual experiences, which you bring up a very good point, secondhand experience is lovely. But that's not as powerful as firsthand experience to go, I just experienced it. I have no choice but to accept the reality that just happened. And I think that that's happening for a lot more people on this planet, because when you can start making those connections, and in the beginning, you know, it can be a little uneasy, like, what the heck, where the frick did that come from? But when they can start to make their own connections, or sometimes like myself, I've just been doing this stuff my whole life. I'd go up to people, you know, a young kid going, hi, I know I don't know you, but may I say something to you? And they'd be like, oh, sure. And I'd be like, and they're like, holy Moses. And, you know, in the beginning, I was feeling bad because they'd start breaking down crying. And I'm like, am I doing something wrong? What? And it turned out, my master guy was like, you're doing something right, because you're somebody who they don't know in any way. That for me, you know, I do it all day long, but I'll be in a movie theater line and be told to turn around and say whatever I'm supposed to say, and it's happened. And to see those people break down, to go, you never know who's around you and who might be right in front of you that can be life-changing. And you're the one who gets the credit, not myself. I'm just listening to your people. They know that you're open enough to have the guts for me to go, hey, I know that I don't know nothing on that, but I always ask for permission to say anything to a person before I share this spiritual stuff, you know, like I do, because not everyone is open to this as readily as possible. But what I do see a lot more over the past few years is more and more people coming from all of these different beautiful religions, that their pain is outweighing their fear of condemnation from the big guy. You know, and they'll sit here going, Jamie, I've never been to somebody who does what you do, and my church doesn't look too kindly on it. And my first response is wow, congratulations for having enough guts to sit here. And two, let's just get a basic meaning of mediumship. To me, a basic meaning is to consciously connect with a being, a spirit, an entity outside of a physical body. Like, is that cool? Like, yeah. Like, okay, so with that very definition, if you talk to God, the angels, Jesus, you're doing mediumship. And I'm willing to bet you're hoping and praying for life-changing miracles and instant communication from that. And they're like, oh yeah. And so again, I don't know nothing for nobody, but if I can share my different perspective, that's it, just different, not better or worse. Sometimes from that different viewpoint, you get different information. Bobby, we have calls?
You got a call on here, Annette. They've been on here since the beginning of the show, and I was wondering, since they've been hanging around so long, I had to step in and say, hey, listen, you know, there's somebody over here you want to talk to, you know?
Hey, Mark, you okay for a phone call?
Sure. I don't know if it's for me or you, but I guess we'll find out.
Well, that's It's area code 630. You've been on the phone call on pause here for a while. Net. Who's on the line?
He gave
Okay.
up.
I'm going to make you wait, boy.
You're right now.
Leo.
You're on.
Hi, this is Crystal.
Crystal, how are you? Here's Jamie.
Hey,
And Mark-
Crystal.
Hi, Jamie.
Good to hear from you. So what's going on? How can Mark and I be of service to you?
Well, just want to know what Spirit has for me for the coming days. Everything feels great, peaceful, empowering, and just my parent and I are sitting here and we're listening.
And that is awesome. But I think you're also bringing up a very interesting point with the circumstances of what's going on with humanity. I am seeing it bring us together, not separating us. And for me, I enjoy going out for walks in the morning, and I have seen entire families out walking, getting exercise. And people with more years of wisdom, grandpas, kicking booty with canes, they're still going, man. They're like, hey, this is great. I have seen so much of the very challenge that is distancing us is really bringing us together as well. And you've got a teacher healer vibe. But, within that, I also feel like it's giving yourself a little permission to go, hey, as much as I'm going to help others, I'm going to start helping myself as well. Because people don't always know how to help the one who helps everyone else. But not only that, do you possibly have a question for Mark or I as well? And you could call in at another time where we could do a psychic reading, which I'd be honored to do. But if you possibly have any conversation or questions for us, that would be awesome.
Yeah. I'm wondering about, I feel my parents talking. Say hi, Ozzy. So I'm feeling different new work coming through, stuff I'm learning, stuff I'm, just absorbing, a lot of information coming. My daughter on the afterlife is with me all the time. And I was just wondering what you feel about coming work, because I feel something is definitely coming and just want to hear what you have to say.
Well, and the good thing is you're ready and receptive for it. The great thing is all right, just be open. You're not going to choose something if it doesn't feel right. But what that also tells me is you're starting to find yourself more effectively within life, not lose yourself to it. But when these experiences happen, magnetically, there'll be other opportunities. And I do feel like a lot of what you're feeling is very valid. I do get a bigger expanse of energy. So to me, the next phase of your life is going to be more opportunity or bigger opportunities. Doesn't mean you have to choose them all, but they will be offered to you.
Awesome.
Now, yeah, and the great thing is you'll get the credit. We're just the messenger. I love you. You don't have to pay attention, but I'm usually a good road sign. Do you like what's coming up for you or do you not? I want to make you proactive to go, okay, you know what? If that were to happen, I might do, because you help a lot of other people. But again, I feel like you're now realizing that you're able to help yourself. And I've realized the more love, energy, attention, and compassion I give myself is no longer narcissism, it's self-realization. That is power.
Yeah.
Narcissism and sharing. Mark, with this connection, have you maybe gotten some insight in a psychic way about your own life experience? Maybe something that was coming up for you in a psychic way that you picked up?
I can't think of like an example that's really obvious. I'd say it's more in small things day to day, kind of guidance about feeling do this or don't do that kind of thing, and just kind of trusting that. I think more in my case, it's like that. And I think also I'll kind of look at how things unfold in front of me. And sometimes I feel like if there's a lot of obstacles, maybe I'm not supposed to take that path. Whereas if things are a little smoother, maybe that's the path I'm supposed to take. Maybe that sounds a little superstitious, but to me, I think that's my guidance.
Perfect. And again, how much you feel the information, not that you think it. And, like I do, once you start to get a pattern, okay, when something's feeling like that, it's playing out like that. They'll give you a familiarity. So when you keep getting a certain feeling or pattern, that will be more accurate. And I'm right there with you, Mark. I feel everything. I don't know nothing, but I feel everything. And those feelings become the knowingness. And when you can start to help yourself, that's powerful. Because I'll always help others, but I now make sure I include myself. I'm no longer a hypocrite. Hi, I'm Jamie. Right, man. I've got that kind of connection. And when people can go, okay, Mark, you know what? No one can do it for you, but you had enough strength and steadfastness to want to heal in any way that you stayed here. And not only that, the very energy that could have changed your whole life, you stuck around, and not only are you helping yourself, you're helping a lot of other people. Because I will tell you, excuse me, I'm very honored. As you know, Mark, I have the opportunity to do presentations for Helping Parents Heal, a great organization with amazing people. And I have seen the healing that comes to the people, that they are in a great mood with loving happiness and smiles. And a lot of people are like, I don't understand that. Because some, perceive that in those circumstances, it'll be subdued and challenged. And your organization has a whole different vibe to it. But not only that, I found that the more that we're able to make those connections for their loved ones in the audience, and then those circumstances happen, they start to accept a stronger connection with their loved ones to go, well, if this guy, in this case me, is making those connections and he's exactly right with that, then maybe I can do it. And not only that, as he's talking about that, I feel what my connection is. Not I think, I feel. That kind of an energy is powerful, because I will also share, it happened when I was doing a presentation with Helping Parents Heal, and it was lunchtime and everyone had their lunches, and I was sitting there with another person, and everything else there was nobody sitting there. In one shot, mind sight wise, in my mind's eye, all the kids are sitting in every one of those chairs, man, having fun, talking, playing around. And not only that, the energy intent was helping everyone else to make their own connections. It wasn't like, I only want mine. It's like, man, I want mine and I want you to have yours. I love that, because for me to see that so naturally and so clearly, like I do it all day long, that was powerful. And they were all together. That was unique. I have not seen that before until that time. Have you had anyone else that works with their abilities that maybe has had a similar kind of validation or experience where multiple kids got together, or whatever the case might be, so that the parents were like, okay, and you know what? That ran through my mind just yesterday. Like, oh, well, here it is.
I think Suzanne Wilson has, because she's been very involved in the organization too. Tina's participated, and a few others, Todd Hogan. I think, really that speaks to the difference between Helping Parents Heal and the other bereaved parents organizations, because we're the only one that allows the open discussion of spiritual experiences and afterlife evidence. And that's really what differentiates us. But it also brings in the hope element, not just the grieving and talking to each other about the past kind of approach. But yeah,
that's the thing. A lot of us go for hoping to make the connection. Once you make that solid connection and the personalities and all that, there's no longer hope. There's a knowingness. When you build from that kind of a solidness, that alleviates a lot of the fluctuation, because, you're questioning everything along the way. But as you've gotten that gets you to stand on a different perspective with a stronger base to stand on. Has there been anyone else that, while they're talking to you and seeing the success that you're sharing with other people, has anyone else thought about creating their own organizations in reference to what you guys have been doing such a great job with?
A lot of parents have. I mean, I think one natural thing that's an outcome when somebody loses a kid or has a kid pass on, transition, a lot of them will want to create some organization or foundation in honor of their child. And that's more often than not associated with something that was tied to either that was important to their child or the physical cause of death of the child. So it might be cancer research, or it might be like, oh, they were into archery, so I want to support youth archery or whatever. But we often see that. And then there's, other types of approaches too. But I'd say, some of the parents will just start an affiliate group of Helping Parents Heal, because they like what we've done with them and they felt it helped them, so that now it's their turn to serve others.
Nice. And I think you're very much aware of it, which you are, about the work we've been doing with the Soul Phone at the University of Arizona, Dimensional Frequency Resonator, because we are the Soul Phone. But within that, the curiosity is, once this is out in the public awareness, religion as you know it is changed. do you see any potentials for humans beings in this case that when this soul switch, soul keyboard, soul audio, soul visual is solidly there and we're able to connect with our loved ones like a phone call away, what do you think that's going to do for these beautiful religions and these other aspects?
Well, it's hard to say for sure. I mean, first off, the technology would have to be able to do all that, and I don't know that it's there yet. Hopefully, it will get there. That'd be awesome. But I think the thing is, what you'll find is that underlying a lot of the religions, there are basic truths to those, but there's also human elements that have been interjected in as well. So my dad used to talk about the golden strand of truth that runs through all religions, and it focuses more in terms of what are the commonalities, what are the underlying truths of those faiths, and I think those would be discovered to be accurate. But I don't think even like the next dimensional level or plane above us that they necessarily know everything, because I think the universe physically and metaphysically is so immense and vast, and it's all about progression of soul, I think. So, they may not know everything, but they may have a broader scope of knowledge and understanding than ours. How it will affect religion, it's hard to say. I mean, in general terms, Orthodox religion has been on the decline in this country for some time. And I think there's a variety of reasons for that. But I think people do want most people want a spiritual connections. Obviously, you have the agnostics and atheists, the agnostics being open-minded skeptics, and the atheists saying they know how it all works, and it's basically anti-religion, and there's no meaning to anything. But they can't prove that either, and it's kind of a very depressing philosophy to follow. But in terms of Orthodox religion, I think maybe what would happen is that some of the more man-made elements of it would kind of fall out, and then the underlying basic truths, the pillars of those, would match up with what is really discovered to be the truth.
That's excellent. Mark, can you give the listeners some information? How can they get a hold of you?
Just visit my website. It's markirelandauthor.com. That's Mark with a K, Ireland like the country, and the word author, markirelandauthor.com. And if they go to that site, they'll also see links to my father's site, my father's videos if they want to see his demonstrations, the Helping Parents Heal site, and my mediumship certification site. Those all have links there, as well as some of my other interviews. And one thing that's kind of cool they might want to check out is the Discovery Channel clip when I was in the U of A lab. So I'll leave it at that.
Excellent. Mark, thank you, sir, for being on. Thank you for being my friend. And thank you for all that you do for not only humanity, but for yourself as well. I appreciate you.
Thanks so much. It was great to be here.
Bobby.
Hey, thank you very much. Jamie, Mark, both. Thank you. Everybody been listening to Pyramid One Radio. Now, this is what you do. If you want to copy this video, you can just go right to our channel. Yes, we got a channel on YouTube. Oh my goodness. Or, let me give you the other way to do it, and hundreds of people do this a week. Write us. Just write to BobCharlesShow@live.com or PyramidOneRadio@AOL.com. Either address will send you a copy of this show to your address ASAP. Thank you, everyone, for listening tonight. Pyramid One says, God bless y'all. Bob Charles.